I was 27 when my parents slammed their fists on the table and shouted, "Give up the room or move out." I walked out of that kitchen with a broken heart and a realtor's brochure in my hand. If you are hearing this and you love raw family drama, hit the subscribe button. Now, because what comes next will hit you harder than any family argument you have ever witnessed. My name is Maya Alvarez. I grew up in a cramped 2-bedroom house in Fresno, the kind of place where the walls were so thin you could hear the neighbors argue about the TV volume at midnight. My father worked the night shift at a warehouse. My mother was a school teacher, and my older brother, Carlos, lived in his own world of video games and part-time gigs. When I turned 24, I landed a job as a marketing analyst at a tech startup. The pay was decent, the work was interesting, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a future that was not tied to my parents' expectations. I saved every extra dollar, cut my expenses, and after 2 years, I had enough for a down payment on a small condo. My parents were not happy. They had always expected me to stay, to help with the mortgage, to take care of them when they got older. The night I told them I was buying a place, the dinner table turned into a battlefield. "We gave you everything," my father said, voice raised. "You think you can just leave?" My mother's eyes were cold. "Give up the room or move out," she repeated as if it were a threat. I felt my chest tighten. The room they were talking about was the tiny bedroom I had shared with my brother since we were kids. It was the only place that felt like mine. "I am not giving up anything," I said, voice shaking. "I am buying my own house." The argument escalated. My father stood up, knocking over his chair. My mother shouted, "You are ungrateful!" I left the table, grabbed my keys, and walked out into the cold night. I drove around for hours, the city lights blurring past me. I ended up at a realtor's office that was open late. I walked in, signed the papers, and bought a $1.2 million house facing my parents' house. The next morning, I stood on the balcony of my new home, looking at the familiar brick facade across the street. My parents' house sat there, a little smaller, a little older, but still standing. I felt a mix of triumph and dread. The first week was a blur of moving boxes, sleepless nights, and the constant buzz of my phone. My mother called every day, her voice a mix of anger and pleading. "Maya, please come home. We need you." I ignored the calls. I focused on making the house my own. I painted the walls a soft gray, hung pictures of my friends, and set up a small office in the spare bedroom. I felt a sense of pride that I had built something for myself. One evening, as I was unpacking the kitchen, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find my father standing there, his face lined with worry. "Maya, can we talk?" he asked, voice softer than I had heard in years. I hesitated, then let him in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where the argument had happened weeks before. "I am sorry," he said, looking down at his hands. "I was scared. I thought you were leaving us forever." I felt a pang of sympathy, but also a wall rising. "I am not leaving you. I need my own space." He nodded, then slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a bill for $12,000, the amount my parents had spent on a new roof for their house after a storm. "We need you to help with this," he said. "We can't afford it on our own." I stared at the number, feeling the old anxiety creep back. I had just bought a house. I had a mortgage. I had my own responsibilities. "I can't," I said, voice firm. "I have my own bills." He looked at me, eyes pleading. "Please, Maya, we are family." I felt my heart split. I wanted to help, but I also wanted to protect my new life. I stood up, the chair scraping the floor. "I need to go," I said, and walked out the door. The next day, I received a letter from my parents' lawyer. They were suing me for $12,000, claiming that I had promised to help with the roof. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. I called my brother, hoping for support. "Carlos, did you know about this?" He was silent for a moment. I didn't think it would go this far." I felt betrayed. My own brother, the one who had shared a bedroom with me, was not on my side. I decided to fight the lawsuit. I hired a lawyer, a young woman named Jenna, who specialized in family disputes. She told me that the case would be difficult but not impossible. "We will need evidence that you never promised to pay," she said. "Anything you have will help." I dug through old emails, text messages, and found nothing that showed a promise. The only thing I had was a text from my mother that said, "We need to talk about money." I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could win this. The trial date was set. I walked into the courtroom, my palms sweaty, my heart racing. My parents sat across from me, their faces hard. The judge called the case. My lawyer presented the lack of evidence. My mother's lawyer argued that family obligations should be honored. The judge looked at me. Ms. Alvarez, do you have any witnesses? I nodded. My brother, Carlos? Carlos was called to the stand. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his hands. Did you ever hear your sister promise to pay for the roof? The lawyer asked. Carlos hesitated, then said, she never said she would. She just said she needed space. I felt a surge of relief. The judge seemed to consider this. Just as the judge was about to speak, the door opened. A man in a suit walked in carrying a briefcase. He handed a document to the judge. The judge read it, then looked up, eyes wide. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just received new evidence in this case. My heart stopped. What could this be? If you are on the edge of your seat, hit the like button and subscribe because the next P will reveal the mid-twist and the final revenge you have been waiting for. Stay tuned. And remember, sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people we love the most. The courtroom door slammed open and a man in a crisp suit dropped a folder on the judge's bench. I stared at the label. Whistler Development, Confidential. If you are still watching, hit the subscribe button now, because what happens next will make you gasp, weep, and maybe even cheer. The judge lifted the folder, his eyebrows knitting together. He flipped it open and began to read. My heart hammered against my ribs. The document was a set of blueprints. They showed the exact layout of my new house, down to the hidden basement. I had never seen. Ms. Alvarez, the judge said, voice low, this shows that the property you purchased was originally owned by Whistler Development, a company linked to your parents' mortgage lender. My breath caught. I looked at my mother. She stared at the floor, cheeks flushed. My father's jaw tightened. What does this mean? I asked, voice barely a whisper. The judge continued. It appears that Whistler Development placed a lien on the property before you bought it. The lien is still active. That means the house is not fully yours. A cold wave washed over me. I felt the floor tilt. All the blood, sweat, and tears I had poured into that house. Suddenly it felt like a trap. My lawyer, Jenna, leaned forward. Maya, we need to see the original sale documents. If there is a lien, we can fight it, but we need proof. I nodded, numb. The courtroom murmured. The man in the suit, Mr. Whitaker, the CEO of Whistler Development, stood. He was a tall, gaunt man with cold eyes. Your Honor, he said, the lien is legitimate. The previous owners defaulted on their loan. We are simply exercising our right to collect. I felt a surge of anger. My parents had never mentioned a default. They had never told me that the house I bought was under a cloud. The judge called for a recess. I stepped out into the hallway, my mind racing. My brother Carlos appeared beside me, his face pale. Maya, he whispered. I didn't know any of this. I thought the roof bill was the only thing they were after. I stared at him. You knew about the lien? He shook his head. No, I swear, I heard Mom and Dad talking about a big payoff after the house sale. I thought they meant the roof money. My stomach twisted. The mid-story twist hit me like a punch. My parents had planned this for months, using the roof as a pretext to force me into a settlement, while they waited for the lien to surface and take the house. I felt a cold resolve settle in my chest. I would not let them win. We reconvened after the break. The judge asked for the original sale contract. My lawyer handed over the paperwork. The judge examined it, then looked up. This contract shows that the seller, Whistler Development, signed over the property to you, Maya Alvarez, on June 12th. However, the line was recorded on June 10th, 2 days earlier. That means the lien should have been disclosed. He turned to Mr. Whitaker. Why was this not disclosed? Whitaker's eyes flickered. We assumed the buyer would do a title search. The judge's voice hardened. A title search is the buyer's responsibility, but the seller is obligated to disclose known encumbrances. This is a clear violation. He ruled that the lien was invalid because it was not properly disclosed. He ordered Whistler Development to release the lien and pay the legal fees. I felt a wave of relief, but it was short-lived. As the courtroom emptied, my mother approached me, tears streaming down her face. Maya, please, she begged. We are your parents. We just wanted to make sure you were taken care of. I stared at her, the anger and hurt warring inside me. You tried to take my house, Mom. You used a fake roof bill to extort money. You let a corporation cheat me. She flinched. And we were desperate. The mortgage? The storm. We thought we could fix it and you would help. I shook my head. You put a lien on my house without telling me. You let a stranger threaten me in a courtroom. That is not love. That is control. She reached out, but I stepped back. The final twist slammed into me. The man who had handed the folder to the judge was not a random CEO. He was the same man I had seen in a photograph on my mother's phone weeks earlier, a man named Victor Ramos, a known fraudster who had been dating my mother for months. My mind flashed to the night I had found a receipt for a dinner with Victor at a fancy restaurant, the same night my parents had argued about money. The realization hit me like a brick. My mother had been feeding Victor information about my finances, about the house, about the lien. I felt sick. My own mother had conspired with a criminal to steal my home. I left the courthouse with Jenna, my heart pounding. Maya, we have to act fast, she said. If Victor is involved, the police need to know. We can press charges for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. I nodded, the anger now a cold fire. I called Detective Harris, the officer who had handled my brother's traffic case months ago. I told him everything. About the lien, about Victor, about the fake roof bill. He listened, then said, "We will open an investigation. Bring me any evidence you have." I spent the next 48 hours gathering everything. The blueprints, the lien documents, the emails between my mother and Victor, the receipts, the notebook where I had scribbled down Victor's phone number. I handed it all to Detective Harris. The police raided Victor's office. They found a ledger detailing the scheme. My parents had taken out a second mortgage on their house, used the money to pay Victor to place the lien on my property, and planned to force a sale. The ledger also showed payments to a shell company that had funneled money to my father's night shift wages. My parents were arrested on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted extortion. The news broke the next day. Headlines blared. Local family scheme exposed. Parents plot to steal daughter's home. The fallout was brutal. My mother lost her teaching job. My father was fired from the warehouse. Their house went into foreclosure. Carlos, shocked by the revelation, moved out and cut ties, unable to face the shame. I watched the news from my kitchen, the house finally quiet. The weight of the past month pressed down on me, but there was a strange lightness too. I had fought back. I had exposed the truth. The revenge was not a grand gesture. It was the systematic dismantling of a plan that had almost ruined me. I used the settlement money from the court, $75,000, to pay off the remaining mortgage on my house. I donated the rest to a nonprofit that helps families facing foreclosure. I also started a community program called Home Base, offering legal aid and financial counseling to people in similar situations. I hired Jenna as the program's director. I spoke at local schools, sharing my story, warning kids about the dangers of financial manipulation. One evening, as I was locking up the office, a young woman approached me. She looked nervous, clutching a stack of papers. "My name is Sophia," she whispered. "My parents are trying to take my apartment. I heard about your program and I don't know what to do." I looked at her, saw the fear in her eyes, and felt a surge of empathy. I handed her a flyer. "We will help you," I said. "You are not alone." She smiled, a small, grateful smile. In that moment, the pain of my past softened. Months later, I stood on the balcony of my house, the city lights glittering below. The house that had once felt like a trap now felt like a sanctuary. I thought about my parents, about the choices they had made, about the people I had lost and the ones I had gained. The emotional truth settled in me. Simple and raw, betrayal can break you, but it can also show you who you are when you fight back. If you have ever felt trapped by family, by debt, or by fear, know that you have the strength to stand up, to fight, and to build something better. Thank you for staying with me through this. If you found this story powerful, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more raw, real stories.